It is a common theme these days of revisiting a fantasy or science fiction world with mixed to lesser results. If you want to go back to, say, Middle Earth, you got to go to Amazon and you got to go watch the amazingly super hyped, wonderful Rings of Power. Or if you want to go to Star Wars, you can hang out in on the Casino Planet in the Star Wars sequel movies, or you can hang out with Fat Boba Fett. And it's like when you want to go back to a world that you love. And in this case, Game of Thrones, Westeros. Game of Thrones, probably the greatest first 6 seasons of television that have ever been made, and then 2 horrific seasons that ended the show. And it just seemed like it took all the life out of Game of Thrones. They had all these plans for all these spinoffs, and then some of them just ended up dying, even in pre-production or after the pilot was filmed. These shows would just go to die because it was just there's no interest in Game of Thrones anymore. And now there was a prequel show that came out, House of the Dragon, which started off promising, and I think the second season was a abysmal failure of sorts. And some people are excited for season 3, some people aren't. And so it's like, okay, so after I liked parts of that show and then parts I didn't like much of the second season, it's like, okay, well, now I'm back to like, how excited am I to go back to Westeros? And the answer is, it needs a good show. You need a good show in order to want to go back. That's as simple as it is. Movie, show, it needs to be good. When the prospect of this, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, that follows Ser Duncan and Egg, his squire, it's like, does that sound like that interesting? Just 2 rando characters that don't really affect anything? Like, maybe it is something we need, because it's a disconnect from the fact that every time we watch the show, it's like the stakes are so high and everyone is an asshole, and there's just different levels of jerk faceness. And this show is much more simple. The runtime goes down from 60 minutes. It's all the way down to like 30 to 35 minutes for most episodes. And it's actually really enjoyable. It's a better Mandalorian with better characters, better acting. I really enjoyed, I could not believe that I enjoyed this season of television. Jason, I know that you had to watch this probably week to week. I waited for the first 4 episodes to be out, and then I slowly got myself back up to being caught up. But how much did you enjoy this third iteration of A Trip to Westeros?
Oh, I loved it. I was texting you guys every week, being like, "You got to watch this." So I'm wondering who was the person who nudged you to watch the show, because it wasn't me. I know I was in your ears,
It
so you
was
had
the
someone
internet.
else.
The internet, I was just
Uh,
simply, first episode came out, second, third, and the internet was like, it's good, it's good, it's good. And after the 4th episode, I'm like, all right, I'll dive in, because the internet is doing my thinking for me, because I'm so independent and free willed.
well, thank you, internet, for doing what I couldn't and convincing you guys to do this. But no, what was I wrote? It picks up the pace but brings down the scale. And I think that's like the best thing about this show is it's fast. It's like one tournament is all we're in concentrating on. It's probably what, a matter of days, I think, is the whole show, probably like even a week or something like that. Well, maybe a little bit dunks past and stuff, but yeah, it is fast paced and it's bringing down the scale of everything. And I think that's what we really wanted out of Game of Thrones, and what I wanted, because I know it's always about these epic dragon battles and stuff, but there's so much more to these worlds and to these stories and stuff. And I mean, fantastic casting. I mean, I think that's like the other really, really good part of this. I mean, Game of Thrones in general, I don't think there has ever been a bad casting. And they have very, very good time with that. Maybe characters suck or plot lines suck, but the casting's always been on point. Um, it's, it's an interesting time period too. And that's when I'm really like talking to people about this show, is like it's in between the other 2 shows. And we're actually getting to see some characters in Game of Thrones, or some parents or grandparents and things like that we end up seeing in Game of Thrones. So that was probably some of the most like intriguing parts to me, is we'll get like some little dustings and little beginnings of some of our favorite characters, like little things like that, where we've already seen what the endings of some of these characters are, and now we get to see their journeys to be some of these major figures in Game of Thrones. I'm so excited. and the families, like, yeah, like Baratheons, or the beginnings of Lannisters, or Hightowers and stuff like that. I'm really interested, because I have not read the books. I know that they are all the stories fleshed out and things like that, but I am I'm trying to go as least spoiler free as possible.
Yeah, I was I watched the episodes week to week. I gave it a shot the first week. I was just like, it was one of those things. I just, my gut was like, we're back in Westeros. Like, I just can't quit you. I just can't quit you, Westeros. Like, I always like. I'm a big sucker for fantasy. I love the genre. It's so rare that we get fantasy that's actually worth watching. Um, Most of it ends up being like really corny, uh, or predictable or whatever. And so when
Right.
just there's something
Percy
special about
Jackson, those kind of things for children.
yeah, yeah. Um, so the opportunity to go back, I just couldn't not try it. So first episode came and went, and I was like, all right, that was kind of interesting. Like, not what I expected. It was just like, yeah, the stakes seem so low. Um, But then I watched the second episode and the third, and then pretty soon I was really looking forward to it each week. So, um, yeah, really, really enjoyable. It just, like I said, I really a good medieval fantasy doesn't have to be everything's the end of the world. It's the same with superhero genre, right? Not everything has to be, oh, if we don't stop this missile, it'll blow up the universe, right? You can have smaller scale stories that hit harder because they're more character driven, um, and you really flesh out people and you have fun side characters. Um, and even like obvious, this set was so small, right? It's just this little area that they're in with tents and a jousting arena. But it works. It works really, really well, and it's gonna make House of the Dragon look so much dumber when we go back. And it's like, here's these big battles, but all the characters do weird things, and we waste half of the season doing nothing. So, I really enjoy it. I really hope that they stick with a good year. It seems like they're set up to be every year and not every other year because they're filming 2 and 3 sequentially right now. So, I'm really, really optimistic.
It's very refreshing. The grounded nature of it, and I know the showrunner talked about like, oh, we really had to, in one of the jousting sequences or the 7-on-7, that they have to add a bunch of fog to make it look bigger. And I was totally fine with the way they shot it, with natural, fully costumed extras just running around and just very small scale. I loved it. I loved the look of it. It felt very just real, old, medieval Europe, England, just felt very much like that. It did not feel like fantasy. It just, I really appreciated that. And then I really appreciate the way they handle Dunk and Egg. Dunk being a hedge knight, who's a knight that is a vagabond, a man that just tries to be honorable, help the I forget the exact phrase, but it's like help the needy, help like protect women and children, and like you're just supposed to be a good person, which is very rare for Westeros. Those people in Westeros and Game of Thrones typically die very painfully, very quickly. But in this case, we get to follow him, and he's just on this adventure, gets caught up in this crazy scenario where he wants to be a part of a jousting tournament, and people don't believe him that he's a knight because a vagabond knight is not someone that has like lineage with like a royal family or one of the highborn families. But what's cool about his character is that he's a little off. He's not like super heroic, and he's not like terrible. He's not like a bad person. He wants to do good, but he's also just kind of a little slow. He's a little slow, and it makes his character, especially over the course of the entire season, it makes his character make a lot of sense. Of like, yeah, I could see that. I can see this guy being a vagabond knight. Like, it's not like I was thinking of Reacher, where in Reacher you have Hulkman, Alan Richson, who walks around like just looking like a Greek god and just being like, I don't know, I might find a hammock to sleep in tonight because I'm just a simple man and I go from town to town. And it's just like, this is the most unbelievable backstory of all time. But with Dunk, it makes sense. He just seems like he's a simple guy and he wants to do good. And it's like his where he lives does not matter. He's not looking to live in a palace or a castle or any, and he doesn't look like a guy or act like a guy that would do that. So I really appreciated that character. Jason, what did you make of Dunk and Egg, which is again a super gamut? Anytime you have like one of your central characters being a child, what did you think of that dynamic and the acting of the child?
Oh no, yeah, he was fantastic. Yeah, that little kid. Yeah, I'm actually like watching videos of him online. Like he does things like going to school dressed as his character and stuff like that, or his early acting stuff. Like that kid's very dynamic and very you want to watch him when he's on screen. So no, I really like the interaction. I feel like I really started to like Dunk after his backstory too, after seeing like how he grew up in King's Landing and Homegirl and what he had to kind of do to get out of King's Landing, and him following his the penny tree, whole night of penny tree. So it was really cool to kind of see like actual his upbringings. I didn't think we'd get that. I thought we'd just see old Dunk and not get the history. So it was really fleshing out those characters. And I had a feeling right when I saw Dunk's little shaved head, I'm like, you feel like you're a little Targaryen, trying to hide something like that, having the shaved head like that. So I felt like I saw that happening, and I really enjoyed how that all played out. And I know that's actually one of the big twists from the book to the show, is that actually his dad gives him permission to go with Dunk, and be his squire.
Right.
So I'm actually really excited to see like what he does to like kind of go after him. But I mean, yeah, that's what they need to do with the Targaryens. I don't think it actually works, but actually have them train and be in the real world rather than sitting at Castle Rock, surrounded by all these rich people and other Targaryens telling what to do. So now I really, really enjoy this kind of beginning of these two characters.
If that kid shows up to school dressed as his character, which I saw that, which is funny, but then his rest of his classmates, you got to pick a house and show up, and then we're just gonna get Lord of the Flies meets like the behind the scenes Planet of the Apes, where like people that were dressed as certain apes just all sat together at lunch, just by nature, like all the orangutans hung out with the orangutans. It'd be funny if a bunch of kids just started dressing up as like the Starks, and the Starks sat at the Stark table, and then you would Oromog the other people, of course, right? Gen Z, yeah, I know, yeah, yep.
Should I cut that? I can't believe you snuck it on the mom, dude. Are you fucking
I thought it was Aura. Isn't it Aura farming? Isn't that what you're trying to do?
Oh, you farm to Mog, Jason. Come on.
Yeah, no, it does work really well. Yeah, I agree. It's always a 50-50 shot with kids. Like, they can just be like, if they're just written to be just the annoying kid that like you're supposed to like eventually. But Egg is not annoying really at all. He annoys Duncan, but he's very likable and just seems like a normal. He seems like a normal kid in a abnormal situation, um, and yeah, it makes for a great little duo, the pair of them, and um, it's not nothing is overdone. It's all done so perfectly where it's like it's not like even by the end of the show, it's not like, oh, they are best buds. It's still like they still feel early on in their friendship and relationship.
There is it's only 6 episodes. So it's basically a movie chopped up into a mini series. Well, not really, because there's going to be another season, but chopped up into a series, and the climax of the show is the penultimate episode, where the whole time that Ser Duncan is working to trying to get into a jousting tournament, which has there's some great scenes, great cinematography of jousting and how violent it is.
That shot through the helmet.
Yeah. You really they do a great job of what it must have just like riding a bull like that, the time you're in the stall and they open the cage, or it's just like, you're going to go out for a boxing fight or MMA fight, like the moment of like this about to happen, but now you have a fucking javelin coming right at your head. And I don't know, historically speaking, I'm not an expert. I don't know what they like. I'm sure there was probably ones that weren't as like, I'm going to kill you, But in the show, it does a great job of just being like, yeah, this is not just like, oh, they're jousting, and it's like, oh, it's all fun and games. Which is kind of a callback to the first season when they go to King's Landing and they do a jousting tournament in there, and then there's the Hound and his brother. Anyway, getting sidetracked. But the show comes to a head because Egg's brother is an asshole, and he breaks the lady of or breaks the finger of a lady that's performing a play, and that's when Ser Dunk is the chivalrous one, and he goes and fucks him up, and then it becomes a matter of the poor nobody against the royal cunt, and so the royal cunt chooses to do a 7-on-7. We have never seen this. We've never heard of this. Typically, you get a trial by combat where you fight 1-on-1 or you get a champion to fight. And in this case, this guy picks some old rule. This is like the Tuck rule of Westeros, where it's like, oh, yeah, there's a rule where technically you can do a 7-on-7 so that you can have 6 other people do your fighting for you. And that's what they end up doing. Jason, what did you think of
hadn't been
done in 100 years? They say it hadn't been done in 100 years. This probably, when George R.R. Martin wrote it, he was just like 7-on-7. It was like 100 years ago. I'll get to Winter never. So anyway, Jason, what did you think of that whole the build up, and then also episode 5, which is when the shit goes down?
I'm trying to find the apple tree, the apple guy's knight's name. What's that little his friend who gets him into the Baratheon tent? He's how he meets
the cider guy.
Yeah, cider.
Getting with the prostitute.
Dude, yes. It's like she's already pregnant and shit.
He's like, I feel it's a boy. He's like, a boy, you hear that?
Which I think there's going to be something that comes from that. Like she's impregnated by like, I don't know, a Lannister or something crazy, or a Baratheon. So, I mean, when you were just saying favorite characters, like I kept thinking about him. Of course, you can go Egg and Dunk, but it's like that guy is awesome in my book.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that scene couldn't have like kept you, or that whole situation of the jousting, of course, leading up to it. And that's the main thing of this. But even once the jousting starts and you're right there, you couldn't be more on the edge of your seat. And it was like a couple turning points. Of course, is where his team of 7 that he thinks he has starts to crumble on him, and like almost immediately, and then not even being able to get the 7. So yeah, having to knight that apple tree guy, and then his cousin, his brother, switching sides, as it's the apple tree. He's somehow related to the apple guy, because he ends up getting his kingdom afterwards, doesn't he? Like, yeah, because he loses, and because he's talking shit, he's like, yeah, I beat my cousin the only time in like 100 years that he could have shown me up, and he ended up losing. So it's like little situations like that I love, where there is so much like political and family dynamics that came from that one battle, and then all the of course changing of the entire history with the Targaryen guy getting his back of his head just and I was reading like some articles, and it's like that happens a lot with motorcycle accidents or like injuries where you have a helmet on your head, and then the second that you take that helmet off, that was what was like kind of keeping you alive sort of mentality. So yeah, that will go down as probably one of the most like scenes you didn't see coming in Game of Thrones. But yeah, probably like Battle of Bastards. That was like the only battle that I feel like I was in it in Game of Thrones. Like when Jon Snow is piled with bodies on top of him, I was like, oh shit, that was almost the same kind of claustrophobia that you felt with him being inside Dunk's helmet. So yeah, that scene needed to be what it was, to cement that show as like a fantastic show. To build up to this whole one scene and to actually deliver is rare. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, it does that perfect. Just I think it perfectly. I wish it was just longer, because they do the cut back to the old, like to when he meets Penny what?
Penny Tree.
Pennywise, Penny
Mm-hmm. He's
they cut away. So kind of wish the scene was a little bit longer, but while you're there, yeah, just like the chaos of everything. And the different, how they shot it with like the horses flying in and out, him falling over in the mud, like it feels super grounded. And I think, Battle of the Bastards is probably the best example, because there's a lot of fun battles in the first Game of Thrones show, but none that necessarily take you like POV that
Mhm.
way. That scene was executed so well, and that was my cool. That's my thing about this was it just there wasn't a ton of jousting scenes, but all the jousting scenes, this battle, it just felt like this is one of the best visualizations or the best depictions of what medieval war actually looks like. I guess it's not necessarily war, but fighting. Just
The
the brutal nature when they stab in one of the earlier episodes when the horse gets stabbed, he just goes like
oh,
a quick shooting
yeah.
move and she just jousts right into the horse, and it's just so many of those little details that just added a layer to the show that I feel like the other things just don't have, and that I just haven't seen.
The dirtiness and muddiness of
Yeah.
that time period. I mean, everything was muddy during that time period, and I
Mhm.
think they do a good job of that Game of Thrones. I felt like even more with this show that
Mhm.
everyone's dirty all the time, and everyone's teeth were dirty, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. Everyone's looked like they lived in
Right.
that time and age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was great.
this
Yeah, good.
this show put Robert Egger movies to shame with the amount of shit, fart, and piss that you see in this show. It's funny, you just
Yeah.
go see it on this scale, and it's like a lot, and you're just like, this show's going hard in the paint, not necessarily with gore as much as it is bodily waste.
Just realism. I mean,
That
yeah,
was that yeah, that was the thing with this show, and we didn't even talk about it being a comedy, but that's how they promoted this show as being like, it's kind of a comedy, and that was my one of the biggest trepidations I had about it was, like, this is just I just couldn't see how I'm like, "How can you really have a Game of Thrones show and then be classified as a comedy?"
and why would
Uh
you want one? I mean, like, I wanna see a comedic,
Right.
Jerry Seinfeld, like, background laughter.
Yeah, but it
Studio
works.
shot in a live studio audience. Game of Thrones.
It works because these comedic moments happen, but the characters are still taking themselves seriously, and I think that's probably why it works, is that it's not like the characters themselves aren't laughing at the situations that are happening, the situations that are happening just happen to be comedic, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, crazy that they pulled that off, as well as they did.
I skipped over it, but the part of the show that for sure it's one of those just a gimmick, but I don't care because at the first episode they start playing the Game of Thrones song and it gets hard cut to just a fountain of shit spewing out of Ser Dunk's ass. It was just like insane. I was like, oh my god, what are we doing here? And it did a lot of like comedic cutaways where it was almost like a sitcom, and I'm like, all right, this could get out of hand fast. But then yeah, they kind of had a good balance of it, and then kind of felt like its own thing. It felt different, and so I appreciated that. But for sure, the moment of the show is in the fourth episode when Sir Duncan is trying to get his 7 to fight 7. If he doesn't, then he's fucked. And they're waiting for a 7th person, and no one in the crowd wants to volunteer. And then what's the character's name? Is it
Taylor.
Prince Baylor?
Yeah.
Prince Baylor, who is the uncle of the guy that he's so his brother and his nephew are fighting against Ser Dunk, and he comes through in his awesome armor and helmet, and he flips up and he's like, I will fight like beside you, and they play the Game of Thrones music and it cuts to credits. It just felt so good. It's like, that is it right there. It's just like moments. I think the difference between Game of Thrones and other fantasy or sci-fi is that there's extreme moments of brutal villainy, but also extreme moments of absolute heroism by characters that you don't expect it from. But it makes sense the way it's handled in prime Game of Thrones and in this show. It makes sense when those moments happen and they feel earned. Like, you got the sense that this guy, he wasn't a bad guy. Like, he wasn't like a bad prince. Like, you can tell, like, he's just kind of like being fair, and he has a deep knowledge of like the different knights and the different houses. Oh, I've heard of this guy. I've heard of your master. He did this. It like all that kind of stuff makes sense. So you got this like sense of, okay, this guy seems fair. And then when he shows up, you're like, you're not only fair, you're fucking awesome. And it's just, yeah, it just those moments, it got me. It got me.
Music was a big part of the show, and I actually wanted to do more research on this because I think those 2 times you just mentioned are the only times there's any Game of Thrones music, and that doesn't actually play the whole music. We get no intro scenes of the whole classic Game of Thrones intro. We don't get any of that. And did you guys hear some of the music? There was like jazz, like straight up like 50s jazz playing at one point. I can't remember where it was.
It's in the
Like
last
lounge
episode.
jazz.
The
Yeah.
last episode, he's sitting there on
Yeah.
the tree, bloodied, and it's just
Oh,
Yeah.
they're playing like jazz music or something.
Yeah, and then there's another episode where the music seems so out of place, but not at the same time it doesn't. You know, it does seem out of place for a Game of Thrones show where we have all these like very epic, very orchestral kind of things, but I felt like this show was almost like making fun of that, where it would tease us with the throne music and then go to something else. Like, no, you're not going to get that stuff out of this show. Like, we are doing something completely, I got married. We walked down the aisle to Game of Thrones music. Like, that was like a big, like, how those things are. And there was no epic songs in this show. It was more of like, taking the classic hits or something like that. I feel like one of those shows where they play, you know, something that you guys love, like a old James Gunn kind of moment where he's doing something. Like, there was almost some kind of situations that, like, I almost want to say there was like some battle scenes or something to played to music that just didn't seem normal Game of Thrones. You know, I thought it was a very cool and very risky thing that they did.
I'll just bring him up now. Favorite character, easily. I almost said Baylor again, but no, the Baratheon. What's his name? Lionel Baratheon. Highlight of the show for me. Just like clearly had all the perfect charisma to separate himself from Dunk and Egg, and life of the party, kind of a wildcat, didn't really know what he was going to do, kind of just pops in. He's drunk in basically all the scenes up until the point of when they have the battle. But
he's probably drunk during the battle too.
Probably drunk during the battle too. But and by the end of the show, I was just like, come on, Dunk, just forget all these guys. Just go hang out with Lionel. Go hang out with the Lionel Baratheon, because I would have loved if that was season 2, was just them hanging out with Lionel. That would have been great. But a lot of really solid characters. That was my favorite for sure. That scene, by the way, I got a very good laugh at when in that last episode, when it cuts, it is just him leaning up against the tree, and the Maester's like, it's like his wounds are mortal. He's like, shut up. Like, he's not even a good Maester. He sucks. Get out of here.
No, that you missed the best line. You couldn't even fix an itchy asshole. I'm saying that to Mimi this week. It's like, or something. It's like, I got an itchy asshole or something. Like, you couldn't even cure an itchy asshole.
Terrible. It's terrible, Maester.
Yeah. And he ends up living, you know, like it'd be
like,
his
wounds are mortal.
Get out of here. Fuck you. Yeah. And actually that's the next best line, is right after that. He gets up and I think he's pissing into the river, talking shit to him, and he's like, all of those people we were fighting against were Knights Guards. The king that, you know, or the prince that jumped to your side had no fears at all. We were the ones that had all of the stake in the game. He had nothing in the stake in the game, which the guy died, you know. So that was such like a powerful scene of where, this prince did jump onto Dunk's side and whatnot, but he had no skin in the game. He wasn't supposed to get hurt. None of the Knights Guards were ever going to like hit him, which I think it was Aegon actually did do the death blow to him, but accidentally, I guess, right?
So yes, we all obviously recommend this season. Even if you haven't watched Game of Thrones, it's a super easy watch. Yeah. Way better than Mandalorian and Grogu. Definitely don't watch that. Definitely watch this show. So I'll ask you guys as final wrap-up question. Are you more looking forward to season 3 of House of Dragon or House of the Dragon, or season 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms?
Means this, we're building up to what's the House of Dragon supposed to be this season. This is supposed to be the dragon battles of this eliminates all Targaryens. This is where they really like, this is why everyone is so pissed at Targaryens in the show that we're watching, is what's about to happen in that season. This is where everyone gets thrown into a war. Everyone's dying for Targaryens, which they're fighting against each other. So I know I'm super excited. This might be one of my favorite seasons of this one. But I did see something funny where it's like this whole thing is like CG budget. You know, it's like, of course, that's always a factor in these shows. And the whole thing is Rhaenyra is trying not to have a dragon battle to save money on CG. So like, if you're going to make a show about dragon battles, do not keep trying not to have dragon battles. And so, no, I am equally excited. Don't try to bring down all House of Dragons just because this one was great. You know, there's still potential in that show.
I just gotta say, I'm only laughing because just the way you described it was hilarious to me. It's just like Targaryens are starting all these wars. They're sending all these other places to go fight wars for them. Everyone's mad at them. They get blamed for everything, and then the Targaryens somehow it's always the Targaryens' fault. And it's just like if
reflecting.
If you point that out, you're probably anti-Targaryen. Just what a piece of shit you have to be. Nothing.
Oh,
Targaryens. Listen, Targaryens have a right to exist. Is that Jason?
No one's pro Targaryens. Those incestuous bastards. They could.
Anyway,
I'm keeping all that in. I'm keeping all.
No one's Team Targaryen. What are you talking about? No one is Team Targaryen.
By the way, Jason has no idea what I'm talking about. Remy, go ahead.
Wait, are you trying to reflect on current political climates?
Not anymore. No. Not after that comment.
I am looking more forward to the second season of at this point, things could change, but yeah, I'd love to be wrong, but I'm looking more forward to the second season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms just because I feel like they've got a better head on their shoulders, and they kind of know where they're going, and they're not trying to be anything they're not. It's a very winnable formula, especially because the next season might be very episodic, and just being like, here's this little adventure they do here, and this little adventure they do here, which I'm all for.
Just like Mandalorian. Yeah, just like Mandalorian.
Yeah, except good, and you probably won't have the exact same villain for 3 seasons in a row. Unless I don't even know.
Wait, no, it's going to be a Targaryen villain for all the seasons, so now we're stuck with that.
House of the Dragon, higher potential ceiling if it really knocks it all out of the park, but inevitably that season's going to have some dumb waste of your time. That's what it showed up until this point. Is the first season and the second season have both had episodes where we're just like, why did we have this episode? I don't know. They don't know what they're doing. So, we'll see. Remember Otto? Remember how cool Otto was, and they just sent him away. Otto was the tits.
Yeah. So much potential. A lot of hit or miss in House of the Dragon. Jason, do you know how Dragonfire was invented? It was 2 Targaryens fighting over a candle. Anyway, I'm way more looking forward to the second season of this show because it comes out every year, which I'm so tired of shows coming out every 2 years. I get it with CGI and stuff that they have to come out every 2 years to have these big epic battle scenes and dragons and stuff. But it's so refreshing if they follow through on their promise that this show is going to be an annual show. It seems like 2 very likable characters. You just follow them around Westeros, going on adventures. The next season will be in Dorne, so that's cool. That'll be a different backdrop. So yeah, it's an easy watch, easy to get into, and heavily recommended. And yes, that is Last Page.